I had given up on my life, basically. I had given up on taking care of myself. I had given up on my value and my worth. And my 20s was the most horrendous decade of my life. Hi, hello, how are you doing today? I'm Dr. Bradford, GI specialist, and I'll be looking at you today. So why don't you just go ahead and let me know what brought you in today? Well, I'm bleeding out of my butt. I have extreme abdominal pain. I can't eat or keep anything down. When I do eat, it causes me immense pain. When I don't eat, it causes me immense pain. I've lost over 40 pounds in a short amount of time without even trying. I'm extremely weak. Okay, well, let me just go ahead and pull up your lab results here and we can take a look at them. Oh, okay, so I see you did your last labs and everything looks beautiful. Yes, like your lab results are gold. Everything is in order, so that is great news. Oh, okay, so what's next? Like, what are we gonna do next since nothing came up on those tests? Oh, no, we're not gonna do any more scans or blood work. You see, honey, I don't think you understand. Your lab results were normal, so everything is good. There's nothing medical going on here. Everything's normal. I still have all these symptoms. I mean, what is it then? Well, now your symptoms, yeah, I understand they feel very real, but I'm just looking at you here, and you look a little thin, and you're young. So I'm just wondering, have you ever considered the possibility that you might be just anorexic, and your symptoms therefore would be stress related or psychosomatic? What are you even implying? Even if I was anorexic, which I'm not, I would still need medical attention. Honey, I'm gonna be honest with you, okay? Can I be honest? I'm not a therapist, okay? But I can definitely tell the signs when I see it. And I know that there's pressure to be a certain weight and look a certain way, but starving yourself is not the answer. And I'm sure if you just start eating, you're gonna feel so much better and all of your symptoms will just go away. I promise you, sweetheart. Are you telling me you can't do anything for me at all? Not even another scan, another type of blood test, pain pills? So that kind of sounds a little bit like drug-seeking behavior, and I hate to do this to you, hun, but I'm gonna have to make sure I document that in your chart that you were asking me for pain opioid medication. I know you say it was for your pain relief, but honestly, you are way too young to be in that much pain. So I'm gonna have to document that as drug-seeking behavior. And I honestly think that we're probably gonna be done with this appointment. I need some kind of answer, just so I don't have to feel like this anymore. I'll tell you what I will do for you. I'll go ahead and send that referral in for the therapist. And then once you get to see them, they can sort out all of your issues for you, okay? I hope that you feel better soon. Okay, bye-bye. This video is going to be about my diagnosis story of how I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. So at this time, I was, I believe, a sophomore in college, living life, doing her thing, in a sorority. I mean, college life was not good, but I was trying to enjoy college life as much as I could for somebody who didn't do anything in high school and was suddenly, on her own in this college scene. I'm not entirely sure of how long I had symptoms for. So, life situation, what was going on during that time, it was a very difficult transition for me from high school to college. I was on my own for the first time, living on my own, having to get a job for the first time, having to manage myself, which I did not transition to very well. I went to college with a couple of friends from high school. We were friends, so we wanted to make sure that we roomed together so we didn't have to do the roommate potluck. So for whatever reason, we kind of had a falling out, though I still to this day don't know why we had a falling out or why she just didn't want to room with me anymore and she moved out and moved with our other friend from high school. And I was kind of left alone without a friend because I'm really bad at making friends. So that was a very difficult time. So the stress level was high, and that will come into play a little bit later because stress is an exacerbator of Crohn's disease. So it was a very stressful period in my life. I had flunked my first semester of college. I switched majors because pre-veterinary medicine was not for me. I took on way too much at one time. Felt very lost and very alone. All in all, it was just not a good time. So fast forward to, I guess, sophomore year, where I started to develop symptoms. The symptoms that came with it were extreme abdominal pain with eating, or even if I didn't eat, discomfort, stomach, abdominal discomfort, bloody stool, vomiting, which I never vomit because that's disgusting, nausea, vomiting, and unintentional weight loss. All throughout high school, I was a pretty steady weight. I was at least between 110 and 115 pounds, and I'm 5'1". So according to the BMI, I don't know why I put quotes from BMI, but BMI is not like a good way to measure health. But according to like the BMI, I was a healthy weight, though I might have been a little thin. That was my standard, 110, 115 pounds. So I could not afford to lose any weight, right? I was already skinny, 5'1". Any weight loss on me is very noticeable. These were symptoms that I hid from everyone. I don't really know how I hid them because to me, looking back, it seems like it was obvious because I wasn't eating. I was constantly in so much pain. I was losing so much weight. So that is, I think, the first part of my notes. That is my life. Symptoms that I was experiencing that led to my diagnosis. That probably took longer than necessary. This next section I have titled The Breaking Point. Like I said earlier, these symptoms continued on probably end of freshman year to middle of sophomore year. So December, diagnosis time. End of sophomore year. So these symptoms had been going on for over a year. So at this time, I was very busy with sorority life and school, and volunteering and setting up events and everything, and being on the step team and like trying to do all the things and trying to appear as normal as I could. On the inside and the outside, I was literally falling apart. I had gotten down to, I think, during that time, 80 pounds. So I was kind of deathly skinny, and it was really sickening to look at myself. It was just awful. Like every day was awful. After seeing the therapist, and I remember the plate analogy of like, you have too much stuff on your plate, you need to take some things off your plate. So after the therapist, I think I had gone to the on-campus doctor, told them all of my symptoms. They did some blood work like that to check my thyroid function. They checked for celiac disease. I don't think they checked for anything else, but those are the things I remember. Blood work comes back normal, so my chronically ill folk know what happens when your blood work comes back normal. Doctor says, you're fine, your blood work came back normal. Isn't that such good news? And you're like, no, because I'm suffering. Obviously, I'm not normal. Went to the campus doctor, everything came back normal. So I was just like, okay. I continued believing that I was fine, cool. But as the symptoms kept happening and I still was not able to eat, or have appropriate bowel movements, or, not be in pain 24/7, I decided to go to an actual hospital off campus to see if their doctors and see a GI doctor and see if they could figure anything else out. I went there and I had the worst medical experience of my life. I went there, told the doctor all of my symptoms. He looked at the tests that the campus doctors did, and he was like, well, they checked for everything, and I don't think there's anything wrong with you. Honestly, you're just anorexic and you just need to get over it and eat something. That experience is way too common in the chronic illness community. Why do doctors feel the need to gaslight people into thinking that everything is all in their head, whatever that is supposed to mean? But for a doctor, a medical professional, to dismiss somebody's real life symptoms, somebody who is coming to them for help, that is physically deteriorating in front of them. I mean, how many pounds is that? That's like a loss of 30 to 40 pounds in a very short amount of time on a body that did not have 30 to 40 pounds to lose. And yet, at that point, when I had a doctor look me in the face and tell me that what I was feeling, what was happening to my body, was not a big deal, and that it was something that I had caused myself and that I didn't deserve proper medical care, I was done. Like, I was done going to doctors. I was done trying to figure out what was wrong. I was just gonna keep going and pretend that everything was fine. After that time, after going to the doctor, went about my business as usual. During this time, I was in a pageant called the Black and Gold pageant. I was starting to get real self-conscious about doing this. Like, I really wanted to do the pageant, but we got to, trying on swimsuits and doing the walk and everything. And there was not a swimsuit that would fit me, that I looked good in without you seeing every bone in my body. The thing that really just gets me and kind of gets me still emotional is the fact that I was alone in my pain and no one noticed. No one said anything. And that's a part that still really gets to me. Nobody checked on me. Nobody said, "Are you okay?" Nobody questioned why I wasn't eating. Nobody questioned how thin I was. No one said anything. It's something that has really hurt my heart. We're fast forwarding to just before I was diagnosed. So yeah, the pain and everything never stopped. But there was one night I was in my dorm room by myself and I was just laying in the bed and I was literally like writhing on the bed in agony. And I was just crying and I kept feeling that horrible feeling to vomit. And I was trying everything that I could, everything in my power not to. I had gotten pretty good at squelching the desire to vomit, and I did vomit all over my bed, all over the wall. And I was just horribly shaky and really weak. I just remember laying there and saying that I can't do this anymore and I need to go to the hospital. I ended up calling my mom. I told her that she needed to come get me so that I could go to the hospital. Fast forward, my mom comes to get me and then we immediately go to our hospital. We went to the emergency room. They did a bunch of tests. They did a stool sample. They found blood in my stool. They took notes of all of my symptoms. Ultimately, they decided to admit me. Yay, first hospital stay. So I was admitted to the hospital. I don't remember what day. I could probably check. Okay, I'm really confused because you know why I'm confused. I don't even know my own story. Yeah, then all those were both hospital stays. I've been in the hospital 3 times? What? I talked a lot leading up to the diagnosis. Talked about my college life. I talked about the breaking point, getting admitted into the hospital, not once, but twice in 2010. And now I think it is probably best that we move on to after diagnosis, which was also a very pivotal part in my diagnosis journey. Again, I'm young, I'm 20 years old, and my life has essentially just changed for the worst. So I did not cope very well. Once I was diagnosed, the doctors really did not explain a lot to me. They didn't tell me exactly what Crohn's disease was, what that meant for my life, how to manage it. Nothing really. I mean, I was still in school. My doctors were in a different city. So I kind of had to navigate on my own a little bit. So once they, prescribed their prescriptions and their drugs and everything, I took those for a little bit, started to feel better, things started to calm down. My body started to, not be as inflamed and damaged. So things were starting to look up in a sense. And I was able to, gain some of my weight back and not be so detrimentally skinny. I ended my sophomore year, I think pretty normally, but the thing that I could not adjust to was taking medication. When I was a child, when I was a teenager, I did not take medication. I hated taking medication. Cough medicine, pills, whatever it was, did not take it. I did not know how to swallow pills before I was diagnosed, and learning to do that was very hard, and I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to have to remember and carry around all these pills like I was some old woman who needed all this medication. It just did not seem very fair. And I was very angry and lost during that time. And it was during that time that I made a lot of bad decisions in my life. I started not to be as smart and cautious as I was. And what I mean by that is, I started to think and believe that I was not worth it. I started to believe that I wasn't worth a boy's affection. I started to think that nobody would want me as I am, sick and skinny and disgusting looking. Did not start out with the highest of self-esteems, so going through sickness kind of made everything worse. I just started to put myself in not good situations where I don't want to get into details, but let's just say that I was taken advantage of by male friends who, said that they were my friends. And I was the type of person who believes, yeah, we're just hanging out. We're not, there's nothing more going on. We're just friends. It's great. A lot of the time it ended up not being that and being something else. After diagnosis, the rest of college was very hard because my self-worth had gone completely out the window, and I was making horrible decisions both on my physical health as well as my mental health. During this time, I was still on my mom's insurance, I think. I'm not entirely sure. I know there was one period where she didn't have any insurance, so I didn't have any insurance. But those first couple of months or years, I was on different pills trying to control my Crohn's disease, which never happened. So once I graduated college, I got a job and I had to start basically paying for stuff myself. I think my mom was between jobs. I know the law is now that you stay on until you're 26, I believe. So I think my mom had lost insurance at that time. So between 2012 and 2013, I didn't have any insurance, and the medicine that they were prescribing was $400 a month for a prescription. And I could not afford that. So I ended up going off my medications quite a bit, between just me not wanting to accept it and not wanting to take them, and also not being able to afford it. And again, my self-worth, my self-esteem was shot, and I did not think that I was worth anything better than what I was given. Like I was being punished for something. So I've always been, since I was a child, I've always been agnostic in the sense that I always felt that there was something bigger than me, something there, supreme being, God, universe, whatever. And it wasn't really until after I was diagnosed that I found Jesus. But yeah, like leading up to that point, it just felt like I was being punished for something. I didn't know what I had done to deserve it. After the years of just me not taking my medication and not wanting to be sick, I caused my body a lot of damage. Crohn's disease progressed, obviously, because if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not following your doctor's orders, you're going to make things worse. So that's what I did, and that's why I was in pretty much a constant flare for so long. Gaining weight was still hard, eating was still hard, pain was still there. Like, it was more manageable, but it still was not, I was still not in remission. Another thing that I want to highlight here is my come to Jesus moment. And that came from when I was just not doing well mentally, not doing well physically. And I had a conversation with one of my cousins. I don't remember every detail of our conversation, but the main takeaway was that she was afraid that I was going to die because I wasn't taking care of myself. It was just a very intense conversation. You know, at the time, I think I just reassured her because she was crying and everything, that, you know, I wasn't gonna die, like I was fine. But when I got into my car, I just broke down and I cried because I knew that it was true. And so I kind of want to mention, like, I don't know, this is the official term, but just like unintentional unaliving. Like, I wasn't actively trying to unalive myself, but my actions and my mindset made it okay. Like, if something were to happen, then that just would have been fine. It was just like destroying your body. It's very similar to unaliving. But I was just doing it in an indirect way. At that moment, I was crying out to God, wanting Him to save me and wanting something to live for again. That was just a very difficult time. You know, things didn't just go up from there. Things weren't instantly better. It was still very hard, even, you know, being saved and being in church and everything. My spiritual, my mental worlds got a little bit better. There was still all of this underneath trauma that I hadn't dealt with or resolved at all. It was an intense process, and my body was still sick. My body was still damaged, and everything was still not good. So now, that was the end of 2012 that I had my come to Jesus moment. It wasn't until 2015 that I reached remission. So between that time and 2015, my Crohn's was still progressing because still I wasn't necessarily taking care of myself. I wasn't being careful. I wasn't keeping up with doctor's appointments or medication. I had started to believe that if I had enough faith, that I wouldn't have Crohn's disease anymore, that I would be healed, that I would be delivered from every trauma, every fear, every hurt feeling. All of that would be gone if I just had enough faith in God and I just believed enough. I don't want to say that this was intentional from anyone in my faith family, but the idea that I shouldn't need medication is what I received. I'm not going to say it was deliberate or direct, but that was the messaging that I received. That's how I interpreted what was said to me, both personally and from the pulpit. When I reached the point that I was on my first biologic, Humira, which I fought tooth and nail against, I did not want to do it. You know, I was trying to say, is there anything like diet, anything I can change? My doctor, of course, was like, no, your Crohn's is progressing. You kind of need to take this biologic. So eventually I take the biologic, but the messaging that I was receiving continued, and I thought that I could do it on my own and with God. I stopped taking Humira and I hired a nutritionist, and I'm gonna go all in. She's gonna tell me how to eat well, she's gonna tell me how to heal my gut, and everything is gonna be great. I'm gonna be healed, I'm gonna be healthy, it's gonna be amazing. And that did not happen. I launched myself into the worst flare of my life to date. I got down to, I think, 76 pounds this time. I was hospitalized again in December. Everything fell apart. Again, I don't want to blame anyone, but I did receive some kind of messaging that if I believed or had faith, then I would be healed. When I wasn't, my body was, in my opinion, really close to shutting down. In my memory, I feel like I was close to death. I had, the intense abdominal pain. I had an infection in my butt. At the time, I had thought it was an anal fistula, but only just recently realized, listening to Barrett's story about his anal fistula, realizing that I did not have an anal fistula, I had an anal fissure, which is different than a fistula. I think a fissure is like the beginning of a fistula, maybe. I could be wrong. I'll leave the definition down here somewhere. But I had an anal fissure and it led to cellulitis, I think. It was like a mass growing on my left glute right next to the bunghole, and it made it really painful for me to sit. It was already painful for me to sit because I had no butt, and it's kind of back to square one, but worse because Crohn's was progressing and now I had an infection. This was a really difficult time for me. I was almost, again, to the point of giving up. It seemed a little bit hopeless to me. This was around the time that I had my third hospital stay where they didn't have to do surgery or drain the abscess or anything. I was just on antibiotics for a while to get rid of the infection, was on prednisone and probably some other things that settled down my bowels and my infection. This is where they were discussing me getting a feeding tube because I couldn't eat anything and I wasn't gaining any weight because of my texture taste issues. Could not drink meal replacement shakes. I couldn't get them down. It took the miracle drug of Remicade to send me into remission. I began Remicade at the end of 2015. I was on Remicade and methotrexate. For a while it was just Remicade, but I wasn't reaching remission fast enough, so they added in methotrexate. The lovely combination got me into remission. Since then, I have been on Remicade every 2 months. I have not had a flare since then, knock on wood. All the time, I'm very cautious and I'm very scared of the time when my remission will end, because remission doesn't last forever. I'm so thankful to have 5 years of remission where I can gain weight, where I can eat, where I don't have immense pain. It's taken me a lot to get here. That is my diagnosis to remission story. I hope that I said everything that I wanted to say. I feel like I did. I felt very alone in my diagnosis journey. I didn't feel like I had people around me who could understand, people who could see me and see my suffering. I was very rebellious. I was very dismissive of my disease. I did not want to believe it. I did not want to accept it. And in the end, I made myself a lot worse than was probably necessary. I didn't keep up with my doctor's appointments. I didn't do the things my doctors told me to do. I had given up on my life. Basically, I had given up on taking care of myself. I had given up on my value and my worth, and my 20s was the most horrendous decade of my life. In my 30s, I am still trying to get to a place where I can pick up the pieces of myself, figure out who I even am, get things to where I'm supposed to be. I don't know if I want to say that I'm thankful for my Crohn's disease experience. In a way I am, but also in a way I often think, what if I didn't have Crohn's in my 20s? What if I wasn't diagnosed in my 20s? How would my life have been? Honestly, that is not really helpful. It's not really helpful to look at what if. You only have what you have. And I hurt myself a lot. I feel like I'm just now processing everything that I went through, and there's still some things I feel like I did not mention in this video. I think I said all that I could say at this moment. If you got this far in this video, I thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I'll see you tomorrow with another Crohn's and Colitis Awareness Week video.